touch it. The less you touch the wood, it's very sensitive. The less you touch it, it's not too much. Yeah. That's even this. So you can tuck when you put it in somewhere and try and tuck it in somewhere that you don't knock it around. Because it's the more you touch, it's very, very sensitive.
And we just do a test.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Everybody?
Say.
Who can't hear me?
They're not in the room.
Is this all right? You techno guys, I wouldn't have a clue.
If you can hear, it's more them.
Yep. Yeah. Is that better? Hi. I'm Jeff, and I'm going to be sharing a bit of my story. This is really like a journal, so it's very personal. But some of the things I'm going to share, and it's my journey for health restoration and health recovery or energy recovery. I thought about a title, and my thoughts are from my research and my own experience that better health is, the more you have what? Energy. And because for years I experienced chronic fatigue syndrome, which was depletion of energy and not having the drive or the energy to do anything. I couldn't even work at one point, it was so bad. We'll start with a word of prayer and then we'll just plunge into our presentation. Father, I just thank you for the blessings that we've had here, of all the meetings and the refreshing rain we had yesterday, the beautiful fog in the morning, the sweet sounds of birds and the beautiful mauve flower petals that's just sprinkling on the earth, and the joy we have and the health and life that we can have in you, the liberty, the agape, how that's life-giving and health-giving. And I pray that things I'd share today would make sense, that the people here would go and reflect on some of these things and research if need be. And so I pray for flow and clarity as I share. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So as you can see from the subtitle, the causes and possible cure of metabolic diseases, or known as diseases of affluence, but based on the clinical evidence and patient recovery stories. So that part actually applies more to part 2, which I'll be doing tomorrow by the grace of God. This one is laying a foundation on a few principles, but we'll look at diseases of affluence or metabolic disorders tomorrow, and what people did, some of the strategies they did to resolve that. And what I mean by metabolic diseases is one that you all know, or know someone that has this, or know someone that knows someone that has diabetes, cancer, heart disease, gastrointestinal disorders. Yeah, so is that the 5? So I have diabetes, cancer, heart disease, gastrointestinal disorders. Oh yeah, and there's chronic inflammation, things like that. So I'm going to be talking a bit about that tomorrow because I fit into one of those categories. For a long time I had something called terminal ileitis, which is like extreme inflammation of the intestines, similar to Crohn's disease, and it was just terrible. The pain and the emotional, financially, it devastated me. It was a lot of time. I felt that my life was robbed of a lot of the joy of life, of health and energy, through this very enervating, painful, frustrating, debilitating condition that I had. IBD, IBS, inflammatory bowel disorder, so on. So, thanks to God, I think I've gone a long way in with his help and grace to heal my gut and my digestion. It's a lot better than what it used to be. So I can particularly identify people that have been or are in that situation of having gut disorders. So some of the stuff I learned along the way was about the microbiome, about the bacterial world in the gut, and that's wonderful, wild and interesting, this zoo of creatures we have in the digestive system. So in this talk I'm going to be talking about one of the things that impacts the microbiome. So you'll see it clearly as I go through this talk. And it's something that's been snuck into just about every food under the sun in this planet. And that is sugar, right? So I'm going to be talking about that. And so health, this is just, there's different definitions on health, what health is, and this is just my random definition, putting a few ideas. Health can be defined as physical and psychological balance, because it's mind, body, not just the body, isn't it? It's the mind, the spirit. A lot of my clients, sometimes problems in their body, and me as a remedial therapist, is psychosomatic. It means there's something going on that's stressing them, creating disharmony of energy in the body, and it's creating inflammation, all kinds of problems. So psychological, heart balance, physical, pure blood, unimpeded circulation. I think Alan White talks about that, good health, good circulation. Good vitality and sustained energy. In health, the digestive system, nervous system, immune system and hormonal system all run smoothly and calmly. So this two-part series provides the knowledge showing you how you can reduce inflammation, calm down your hormonal system, repair your metabolism, and help you in your efforts to regain and maintain moderate to high energy levels. That's not too presumptuous, but I think let's aim for optimal. Why not, hey? Yeah, God's a healer, and we've got God on our side too, but with science, not just... So who's this for? Who's this presentation for? I had to think about this. Well, who am I going to be? What's the point of this? And particularly the third group I think will benefit, particularly from part 2. But anyway, even the healthy, you guys that are healthy, robust guys and girls that have vitality, energy, you can get away with ice cream and things like that, here and there. But you have pretty good, robust health and you're feeling good. And I know some of you here that are like that. You seem to not have many sick days. You seem to run pretty good and bounce back. So you'll get something from this talk. But there's going to be people here, because we're all getting older, every one of us, that maybe feel age creeping in, accelerating aging, and you're thinking, well, what am I going to do to maybe need to go to the next level of being a bit more careful? So, and if you manage stress and you do all those and you still feel you're aging a bit quick, well, what can we do to modify it? So I'm going to bring some tips out. And the third group, seriously ill, so those of you who have suffered chronic illness want to identify exactly where you're going wrong and what has caused your illness. Curse causeless shall not come. Job. So what's hindering disease reversal? Because there's people out there that are sick, and I know from experience, that want to be well. They do a vegetarian diet, they exercise, they do the New Start, the nutrition, exercise, water, the sunshine, the temperance, the air, the rest, trust in divine power. But in reality, they're still not well. Well, at least there's one person, that was me. So, anyways, you need to be able to recover lost energy, and that's a big key to find out if things are working for you. And so this series, I think, will be of particular interest to people in that category. Now, 3 John 1:2, it says, "Dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health or prosper and be in healthy," read in King James, "even as your soul prospers and is in health." So freedom of choice. So in this presentation, I made an effort to avoid being one-sided. I'll try and make it interesting as possible and present differing perspectives. Is that fair enough? People's stories, my way might not be your way. Yeah? It's like not one size fits all. And if you look at Alan White's counsel with health, it was not one size fits all. And that can be a problem when people say, this is the way and everybody needs to do this. It's not. And I'm going to show that in part 2 from patient recovery stories, like I'm talking about astonishing turnarounds in health. And they're different, they differ. So and I'm going to go by this principle of Bible, science and experience. Is any familiar with that? The three integrated threads of, this is Jesus' method actually. You remember Jesus, he was teaching from nature and parables and the Bible, and everything harmonised with science, didn't it? Is this making sense? You getting this? Yeah. So, there it is. So I'm a curious person and a reflective soul. I kind of live in the world of ideas, and unconventional topics interest me. I'm not going to mention all of them. But in relation to psychology particularly. And because of my own experience of progressive disease reversal for the last 10 years, I've had a deep and growing interest in the profound effects of a specific kind of nutrition, and I named it, but then I changed it because you're going to have to be here for part 2. But anyway, I will explain more detail in live science, along with several stories and all that, so don't miss part 2. And if you can't be here for part 2, I kind of planned this beforehand, so I went to Officeworks and got about 12 USBs and the cheapest ones I could get, and I've downloaded, I've got 3 to go, so there's a few to go now, and the others you're going to have to borrow one from your friend if you want one, if you want a copy. So, reasons why some folk object to new and controversial topics, if it's character God or the Father, Son, whatever, which may not necessarily be new, but people, it's not the mainstream, is groupthink mentality. We tend to follow the crowd, unable to reason, comprehend the law of liberty, God's design laws, tunnel vision, one-size-fits-all mentality, the all or nothing theory. And this stagnates and prevents people from growing in knowledge, because we're to be continually learning, aren't we, and test all things, aren't we? And to go by, again, life, science, life, experience, and the Bible. So lack of knowledge, it says in Hosea, what does it say there? Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for what? Lack of knowledge. I read in a book recently, there's no incurable diseases, just the lack of knowledge, the knowledge on how to cure it. So, opinions are formed on misconceptions and misinformation. We all know that, don't we? Yeah. So the study outline of this is I'm going to be talking about Eden's story, the story in Eden, history of Eden was a sugar-free zone. Anyway, you can read that for yourself, but that's just to keep you engaged, what I'm going to hope to cover through this talk. Yeah. So, particularly in this one and part 2, I'm going to be talking about 2 macronutrients. What's macronutrients? Major nutrients. And we all know fat, protein, carbohydrate. Does anybody not know that? So, are major nutrients that the body needs. So I'm going to be talking about 2 of those. Fat and carbohydrate. So let's come back to Eden and think about what Eden was like in the Garden of Eden. So originally God had a beautiful garden and it was pristine, wasn't it? There was no chemicals, no pesticides or fertilizers or any man-made junk in that garden. It was beautiful, the fruit was just wonderful, the soil, gardeners know about the importance of soil, was teeming with microbial activity and good bacteria, and so it was very fertile, and these beautiful lush fruits, and they were living in that environment, and they were exercising, weren't they? They were working, I don't think there was access to machinery and electricity and things like that. although Jonathan Gray might dispute that later on. You know, he said they'd found artefacts and things to show that there was... Anyway, I do not want to digress. Let's stick to the Garden of Eden. They used their physical powers to do things, and they walked around. They didn't have public transport like today, Adam and Eve and their descendants.
They didn't need it.
They no, they could just run without any knee joint problems or anything. And so they were in the pink of health and had immense vital force and vitality, didn't they? It was just life to the fullest in that sense. And so, yeah, I mean, walking, and if they had transport, what was it, camels and donkeys and mules and horses, and if you're rich you might have had a chariot to go along valleys and rocky roads and all that. So it was difficult, wasn't it? It was you know, work was a blessing. And for the most part, Adam and Eve and their descendants were blessed with all good blood, good circulation. Now here's the thing, they had efficient, well-functioning energy systems, or the pancreas, with insulin, everything like that was in balance. Now in the intro I talked a little bit about metabolic diseases or diseases of affluence. Now they're really problems that from my research, particularly looking at research of an Austrian doctor called Dr. Wolfgang Lutz, that these diseases of affluence are really connected with insulin. It's a problem with insulin. And that's what sugar has to do with this talk, because I'm going to be talking about sugar. Sugar sets the stage for metabolic disorders. And now Eden was a sugar-free zone. There was no white table sugar in Eden. What did they have? They had a sweet tooth, didn't they? But what did they eat? Sweet fruits, chocolate pudding. Gavin, he knows what I'm saying. Up there, he said, "Jeff, look at this. It's 500 grams, a half a kilo of the sapote." It was unripened, so I wasn't tempted to eat it. It was still green. And then they had another one. It looked honestly like a rotten plum, but it was actually delicious, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So they hacked into that. Part of their breakfast was this. Anybody tried a chocolate sapote or white black sapote? Tastes like chocolate pudding. Yeah. So anyway, so they didn't need sugar in the Garden of Eden. They had it all in the fruits. So what was the original diet? Every Adventist knows: fruits, grains, nuts, and vegetables, wasn't it? Yeah. So that's what they had. And this is the ideal. This is the ideal. So, nature's candy. In the beginning God said, "Behold, I've given you every herb-bearing seed," and so forth, an abundance of fruit for food. Now, it's interesting what Ellen White, she has to say about fruit. And in part two, or in this part, I'll show about what she said about other things. What she said about fruit. Grains, nuts, or just basically, let's go, grains, fruits, nuts and vegetables. Proper combination contain all the elements of nutrition when properly prepared. They constitute the diet that promotes both physical and mental strength. Education 204. Now here's one a little bit different. It's about fruit. The Lord desires those living in countries where fresh fruit can be obtained during a large part of the year to wait to the blessing of fruit that they have in this fruit. The more we depend upon fresh fruit as it's just plucked from the tree, the greater will be the blessing. Like Gavin's been blessed with that sapote tree, so one tree variety gives him 3 months, and then the next one 2 or 3 months, so 5 months of the year. He gets that 5-day ripening up. So that's the nearest thing to the Garden of Eden, in your backyard. So, or wherever it was.
One tree had about, what was it, 120 or so?
Yeah. So go to Gavin's backyard.
Front yard, actually. Anyone could pick them. They're just sitting there.
Come neighbours.
Nobody knows what they are.
No one blow the whistle. So it would be well for us to do less cooking and eat more fruit in its natural state. Eat freely of fresh grapes, apples, peaches, pears, berries, and all other kinds of fruit that can be obtained. Counsels on Diets and Food 309. Now, here's a point I want to make. Although the original diet was vegetarian, it was not necessarily low in fat. Eden was a sugar-free zone, not a fat-free zone. Yeah? Adam and Eve didn't just live on fruit salads. Aside from sweet fruit, Adam and Eve freely ate high fatty, oily foods like ripe coconuts, olives, avocados, nuts and seeds. Further in this presentation, I'm going to bring out the benefits of olives, for example. And the land of milk and honey that God was to bring them in. Not only access to those things, but olives and fatty, oily foods. And now, 19th, 20th century, we're zooming from Eden up to recent couple hundred years. Now in the developed world, we have a completely different picture. Physical degeneration triumphs. Many children are mineral and vitamin deficient, exercise little, are chronic mouth breathers, I talked about that last year, with undeveloped jaws, crowded teeth, which is either a sign of either mouth breathing or minerals, lack of minerals. You know, thousands of dollars parents are spending on orthodontics to widen the teeth because they're crowded. It doesn't have to be. If we gather the knowledge, when there's knowledge, there's power to save your money for children. And in fact, many of my clients that have chronic issues in their neck or their cranium, or even the rest of their body, comes from the jaw or history of having orthodontics. And there's this bite back and it's creating neurological problems and all sorts of problems. So it's important, all these things. So metabolic disorders and inflammatory diseases like diabetes, obesity, cancer, IBS and heart disease prevail. That's one I forgot earlier. Heart disease is a metabolic disorder. What is the popular sweet white food additive? I've already told you. It's proven to be a major cause of disease in children and adults. You've probably guessed none else but sugar. Now I'm going to go into the history of sugar. During the 1500s, sugar was an expensive, like a fine spice. It was this gravelly, gritty stuff that was hard to make. But lately, it's 1800s, 1900s, it become more affordable bulk commodity. And so sugar was first produced from sugarcane plants in northern India in 1500 BC. It was gritty, gravel-like. And after the improvements in production, it moved to America and Australia and so forth. So there you have this.
Is that BC or AD? 1500?
Oh,
BC?
yeah, sorry, AD, yeah. So, American sugar refinery, there's a picture. There are lots of these popping up. Now, sugar is a poor substitute for fresh fruit. Now, we all have a sweet tooth. The Bible says, eat the fat, drink the sweet, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. Now, design more. God created us in such a way we actually naturally, don't we, enjoy sweet things? And I don't know about you, but I really enjoy fatty things. And who doesn't, if they're honest, don't like pasta or pizza, vegan or non-vegan, whatever, or ice cream or chocolate? We all do, and it's because God's designed us to enjoy fat things and fats. So I'm going to show you from these presentations, instead of fat being the big bad guy and harmful and causing heart disease and all this nonsense, it's actually good for you. According to the Bible and according to science and according to the experience of many people are reversing these diseases. So the things I'm sharing these, not understanding these things, are the things holding me back and perpetuating the problem. So science and experience. Now, widely acceptable drug, sugar. So what's wrong with this sweet white substance that food manufacturers add to almost every product? Facts about sugar. Sugar is highly addictive. It's like a drug. It's a drug. A little here and there is okay, but the problem is it's easy to consume way too much. Yeah? Agree? Sugar has zero nutritional value, no vitamins, no minerals and no enzymes. It robs nutrients from the blood and causes mineral imbalance. Now here's the big one. Sugar is absorbed into the bloodstream way too rapidly. So recent medical research stress, this is the biggest problem because of repeated rapid spikes and crashes in the blood sugar, puts enormous stress on the hormonal system. That's God's design to run smoothly and calmly. ADHD in kids, diabetes, all these things are metabolic. It's because the insulin is just overstressed and overproduced, and then it can even end up protesting, and the way it does that is it actually builds, the body builds, immune system builds antibodies to destroy the beta cells in the liver that create insulin. So it's a problem with insulin. People become type 1 diabetes, all sorts of problems.
Excuse me, Jeff.
Yeah.
Is there any, from what you've just said, is there any correlation between panic attacks?
And sugar excess? Yeah, I suspect so, because when you get things to calm down, the insulin, get the blood sugar level, then you feel calmer, you feel better, you handle stress better. And I'll be bringing this out, the actual specific clinical data, on part 2, for those who are interested in the details of this. This is just the basics. Diabetes, sugar, major cause of disease. Now, you're probably interested, well, what about Ellen White? What's her take on sugar? It's quite interesting what she has to say about it. Far too much sugar, is ordinary use in food. Cakes, sweet puddings, pastries, jellies, jams are active causes of indigestion. That's what got my attention, because my digestion wasn't working properly. And here I was in my 20s reading counsels on diets and foods and thinking, well, Ellen White never misses, there's got to be answers in here. I realised, whoa, and not just sugar. For me, it was too many sweet, complex carbohydrates, too much dates and things like that, because it all starts with sugar. So, especially harmful are custards and puddings in which milk, eggs and sugar are chief ingredients. The free use of milk and sugar taken together. Milk and sugar taken together should be avoided. Why? Because it creates fermentation. It's incompatible in the digestive system. Now, I'm not talking about rough and tough, robust people with super good digestion. They might be able to get away with this, but I'm talking about generally. Yes, she's talking about dairy milk. And combinations, food combinations, I think it's very individual and people need to trial and error. Personally for me, I'm doing better by avoiding combinations of high protein and high carb. It's a disaster for me. So it's almost like I'm jumping ahead a bit, but I'll get to that later. But yeah, she's talking about milk and sugar combinations specifically. Don't mix the two fuels. Especially applies if you have gut problems, or you want to experiment and find out what combinations work best for you. And she said don't mix fruits and vegetables as well. Does everybody know that? Sort of. I mean, not saying you don't have dessert after lunch or whatever. It's just, as a general rule, you're not going to have, a lot of it's common sense, watermelon, bananas, and then you're going to have some scalloped potatoes. Or, you know what I mean? You don't want to mix all those things together because it can cause inflammation and so forth. Chocolate is a classic milk-sugar combination, isn't it? I used to love, Toblerone and Mars bars and Snickers. Am I on my own there? Does anybody used to like that chunk? Still eat it? So better combinations, so you can just work it out. White flour and sugar clog the living machine. The free use, quote, the free use of sugar. She's not saying don't have sugar. Talking about the free use of sugar in any form tends to clog the system and is not unfrequently a cause of disease. So the reason I'm bringing this out, we've always been told that fat is a problem. And I'll show you that in this presentation, where I'll be dismantling a myth about fat. It's been seen as the problem. Everyone says, sugar's okay. and it's swept the Western world. So you got all these products with sugar, and people are getting sick, and they're saying, oh no, I have low fat this or zero cholesterol this. And they're still getting problems, and I'm going to show you why. So she says great amounts of milk and sugar, these clog the system, irritate the digestive organs, and affect the brain. Brain-gut connection. And from the light given me, sugar, when largely used, is more injurious than meat. Bing! How about that one? So, the free use of sugar, the middle quote, in any form tends to clog the system and is not unfrequently a cause of disease. Pro-inflammatory effect of excess sugar. So, chronic inflammation, 7 signs you have inflammation. Brain fog, chronic fatigue, stomach problems, depression, metabolic, swollen joints, muscle aches, visceral fat, skin conditions. Now, if you've got 1, 2, 3 or more of these problems, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have chronic inflammation, but they're indications of a possibility, a likelihood. It's inflammation in the body. Metabolic diseases caused by excessive sugar intake. I already mentioned those. Obesity, heart disease, cancer, inflammatory disease, including gastrointestinal diseases. Sugar, now that's the bad side. What about the good side? What are sugar alternatives? Carob, you're familiar with that? Naturally sweet, mineral-rich alternative to chocolate. Or the one I completely forgot about till this morning was black sapotes. Yeah, it's probably even better than carob. If you haven't tried one, you have to try one. Honestly, you've got to get one.
When you're talking about carob, you're not talking about carob buttons.
No, not that junk. I'd read the labels of everything I buy to this day. It's just habit. And anyway, anything I buy that's not from the fruit and vegetable shelf.
But there's a misconception. People swing to a carob alternative,
Totally.
which is mostly chocolate.
Glad you brought that out because I have milk powder and sugar and all this stuff. So actually there's one in Woolies, I'm slightly addicted to it, and it's this choc mint carob stuff. Has no sugar, it's made of coconut nectar, carob powder, bit of cocoa in there, and mint. And it's like $70 a kilo. But I buy some now and then, and that's my little treat. And I just have 1 or 2 bits a day, and it's just so nice. Because I don't eat the junky chocolate, so I have to have a replacement, don't I? Right. So desserts made with raw honey, fresh dates, sultanas, or natural sweeteners combined with oily foods like nuts and seeds. These replace highly fermentable combinations like milk and sugar, and they're less likely to irritate brain and gut. So some prefer coconut milk, or there's soy milk, almond milk, cashew milk to dairy milk. You can blend it in a banana, berries and all that, make a smoothie. And I'm sure all you excellent cooks here know how to make these things, because I come to the lunches here. So now water fast followed by fruit diet. This is an interesting quotation. Intemperate eating is often the cause of sickness, and what nature needs to be relieved of is undue burden that is greatly placed upon her. And in many cases of sickness, the best remedy is to a short fast for a while, missing a meal of a while, and that the overworked organs of digestions may have an opportunity to revive and rest. A fruit diet for a few days has often brought great relief to brain workers. Many times a short period of entire abstinence from food followed by simple moderate eating has led to recovery through nature's own recuperative effort. An abstemious diet for a month or 2 would convince many sufferers that the path of self-denial is the path to health. So how does that work? Recovery through nature's recuperative effort. by fruit diet for a while. It's when you're fasting. Who's ever done fast? Yeah, a few people. What happens? All your energy gets shunting into repair, doesn't it? And detoxification, that's the benefit. Even our Lord, Jesus, he fasted, didn't he? So, different people in the Bible. And the Bible actually has a fair bit to say about fasting. So, sugar's history of misinformation. Now, listen up. How sugar industry shifted the blame to fat. Now, you're going to find this quite interesting. And the internal sugar industry documents recently discovered by research at the University of California and published Monday in JAMA Eternal Medicine suggest that 5 decades of research into the role of nutrition in heart disease, including many of today's dietary recommendations, may have largely been shaped by, guess who? The sugar industry. You find that interesting? Sugar discussion derailed. They were able to derail the discussion about sugar for decades, said Stanton Glatz, a professor of medicine at UCSF and author of JAMA Internal Medicine paper. The documents show that the trade group called the Sugar Research Foundation, known today as the Sugar Association, paid 3 Harvard scientists the equivalent of about $50,000 in today's dollars to publish a 1967 review of research on sugar, fat and heart disease. The studies used in the review were handpicked by the Sugar Group, and the article, which was published in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine, minimised the link between sugar and heart health and cast aspersions on the role of good old saturated fats. So last year, who's Coca-Cola? What did they do? The world's largest producer of soft drink beverages had provided millions of dollars in funding to researchers who sought to play down the link between sugary drinks and obesity. National influence of Harvard scientists. The Harvard scientists and the sugar executives with whom they collaborated are no longer alive. One of the scientists who was paid by the sugar industry was Dr. Mark Hegsted, who went on to become the head of the nutrition of the United States Department of Agriculture, where in 1977 he helped to draft the forerunner to the federal government's dietary guidelines. Can anyone see what's going on here?
Jeff,
Yeah.
I know at the young times, in his 30s, he was very big, and he gave up drinking Coca-Cola for 4 months, and he lost 40 kilos.
That's significant. Wow. So, for many decades, health officials encouraged Americans to reduce their fat intake, which led to many people to consume low-fat, high-sugar foods that some experts now blame for fueling obesity crisis. Quote, "It was a very smart thing the sugar industry did, because review papers, especially if you get them published in a very prominent journal, tend to shape the overall scientific discussion." He said, Dr. Hegsted used his research to influence the government's dietary recommendations, which emphasise saturated fat as a driver of heart disease, while largely categorising sugar as empty calories linked to tooth decay. You know, you use the half-truth, you know, to embed a lie, you use a half-truth. Yeah, well, sugar can cause tooth decay, but what about the rest of the story? Today, the saturated fat warnings remain a cornerstone of government's dietary guidelines. Though in recent years, the American Heart Association and World Health Organization, bless their hearts, and other health authorities have also begun to warn that too much added sugar may increase cardiovascular disease. Yes.
Just 2 years ago when I was having my surgery for heart in Prince Charles, after you come out of your surgery, the drugs they've been putting them on, they completely lock you up. And they have to give you, I can't remember the things to, and to get some of this medication down, you need something to drink afterwards. So I don't drink tea, I don't drink coffee. They said, oh, they've got Milo, so they gave me Milo. The next day I asked for a cup of Milo as well, and I couldn't have it because it has too much sugar in it.
Yeah.
And it was that same day, they brought in a new rulings of not having certain sugar for patients with heart disease. So they are aware of that,
Yeah.
and they have implemented it.
There we go. That's a good thing, isn't it? So that's good. So the Harvard scientists have dismissed the data on sugar as weak and given more credence to the data implicating saturated fat or fat saturated hydrogen. After the review was published, the debate about sugar and heart disease died down, while low-fat diets gained the endorsement of many health authorities, Dr. Glantz said. By today's standard, they behaved very badly, he said. So simply put, thousands of Americans, and you could say Australian families, were lied to. Millions of ordinary folk were led to believe that fat and not refined table sugar causes obesity, diabetes and heart disease. This, of course, would shape their eating habits. The truth is, by and large, sugar is creating these problems and more. So, how many of you were told that diabetes is caused by too much saturated fat in the diet? How many have been told foods like coconut oil or cream or milk or eggs elevate triglycerides and drive cholesterol to accumulate the arteries, and therefore should be strictly limited or avoided? This seems ironic when considering past generations around the world have enjoyed these staples and were not plagued, including olives and olive oil, were not plagued with the prevailing metabolic diseases of affluence seen in today. So, the Bible's take on sugar. Not much. 2 verses in the entire Bible about sweet cane. It's not in a very positive light now. So what does the Bible say? 2 verses. Now if this is getting too warm and you need that back door, that roller thing up, or you want to stretch, I really want your brain switched on to get the rest of it. Alright, did you want a break? You want to just stand up, have a breather? It's Sunday.
Have a drink.
We can exercise. Have a stretch. Maybe, Gavin, you want to push that up a bit? The reason I put it down is because of the glare, but can you still see that all right? Everybody?
Just the camera has a problem.
Yeah, it's online.
Live.
Okay.
I'll move.
Yeah, it doesn't matter where you move it. Just be careful too much light coming in because you can't see the stuff on that.
It's up to you, Jeff, if you want to get
Now we're going to hurt them all back.
Yeah.
Anyway, we just have a little break. Yeah.
Press the wall.
Are you suggesting, Jeff, that we've been lied to again?
Mm-hmm.
Just out of interest, in Ryan's milk she mentioned, you didn't talk about soy milk.
Personally, I'm not a big soy milk drinker. It works for some people. There's a hot debate on pro soy
Because it's
and
not
soy
processed.
milk.
They have to process something.
Yeah.
Macadamia.
Some people are preferring the nut milks, like almond milk. You can buy it in like, it looks like an old-fashioned milk carton, you know, like that. Cashew milk, really nice.
The problem with soya is it's impossible to get soya products which are not GMO. And
They can say it's GMO free, but they're allowed to put a really high percentage.
It's okay, but if you can't get it, they mix it, they blend it.
They go over
I'll be talking about that next, actually, in a minute. Yeah.
You know, you had sugar alternatives.
Yes.
What about things like stevia and
Yeah, great, excellent question. Yeah, stevia is a great sugar alternative that has 0 calories, go figure, but it tastes sweet, and it's from a herb, from the stevia. It's actually a green plant they use. It's nice if you want to sweeten something up and you want to reduce sugar.
and is it better if you are a Coke drinker? Is it better to drink Coke Zero than regular sugar?
Definitely not. They're both bad. In fact, my niece was drinking these drinks with saccharin. Yeah. And she's a young, healthy pharmacy rep, and she went into a pharmacy and she had a problem with thinning of her hair. She was freaking out, 27-year-old. Yeah. And then he said, he saw one of those drinks, and he said, if you knew what was in that, you wouldn't be drinking those drinks. And then she did a little bit of research. She was horrified. So they're not good, those artificial sweeteners. Are we ready to go?
Yes.
Just keep going, I'll catch up.
Go down the door down there. Put one on.
Right. Okay. Roll the door. Can anyone reach? Go.
Thanks, eh?
So 2 verses in the Bible talk about sweet cane, and not in a very positive light. So I thought, sugar in the Bible? No, sweet cane. And both refer to Israel's sinfulness and their sacrifices to try and appease God. God wasn't pleased with these sacrifices and didn't accept them. Life application: God wants his people to live according to his design law and present their bodies a living sacrifice, not a weak, simply dead sacrifice, damaged by refined sweet cane. You know, it says, the Bible in Romans says, be not conformed to this world, but be what? Transformed by the renewing of the world. So, renewing of your mind. So, that's an interesting verse. Don't be conformed to the customs of this world. So, the honey principle, now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the molecules and the science, you know, under a microscope, the nutrient value of honey and so forth, other than the Bible has, well, let me just back up. The Bible has far more to say about fat than it does sugar. And that's because highly refined sugar, as we know today, was far less readily available in ancient times. However, the Bible does refer to another form of glucose, and that is honey. And although it says honey is good, Proverbs 24 verse 13 and 14, it also cautions us not to what? Not to eat too much of this stuff. Eat a little honey, otherwise you'll feel sick and be ready to vomit. That's a paraphrase. Proverbs. It's interesting, sweet to bitter, because this is a principle in the Bible. Sometimes what begins as a sweet experience can become bitter in the mouth. Remember that in Revelation? Take a little scroll, eat sweet as honey in the mouth. Belly in your, bitter in the belly. Not belly in the bitter in the belly. So this could be said of overindulging in sugar. Sugar is sweet in the mouth and gives initial energy rush, but can lead to a lengthy and bitter experience of suffering, multiple diseases when you overdo. I think, that's what creates problems. So the Bible, we talk about sugar, we talk about the history of sugar, what the Bible has to say about sugar and honey. Now we're going to look at what the Bible says about good old, what's the other macronutrient? Traditional sources: olives and olive oil, milk and cream. We will now Now God said, a land abundant with fat things and sweet things like milk, cream, curds, a classic example of food high in good old saturated fat. And yet 14 times in the Old Testament God promised to bless Israel by bringing them into a land of what? Flowing with milk and honey. What does that mean? Cows, goats, sheep, an abundance of nourishing products for the Hebrews at that time. So now I'm going to do a little bit of a walk through the Bible on this, and again, this is part of my journal, part of my own research, so that might be relevant to some of you, and you can take or leave it. I'm just going to share what I've found from Bible, from actually reading an article, and I'm not saying promoting pro-vegan or non-vegan. It's you to make your own choices. Is that fair enough? Yeah, I'm just sharing my journey. And remember, ideal fruits, grains, nuts and vegetables. Ellen White in her diet, in her life, back then, included milk and cream. And she had that moderate use of that. I'll be showing that later. So fats are a significant source of energy. Coming back to energy, people misled by the media thinking fat is bad for them and depriving themselves of this major nutrient are more likely to experience depression, postpartum, nerve, hormonal and energy-related problems. What is fat? Fat, now I'm not a scientist, but this is just my basic understanding. Fat's are hydrocarbons, which means a compound of hydrogen, carbon, a little bit of oxygen. A little science tells you hydrogen is an efficient source of energy. Saturated fats saturated hydrogen like green provide a lot of energy. Now interesting, chilab, the word for fat in the Bible, the Hebrew word for fat in the Bible, chilab, it's actually used 92 times in the King James. And the Hebrew word for milk is the same, chilab. Isn't that interesting? Milk fat. Both these Hebrew words are derived from the same root word that means to be fat. And it's not talking about to be obese, it's talking about to be healthy. Because olives, fat, oil, that's a symbol of health, are derived from the same root word. So again, the Hebrew words for fat and for milk are in fact identical. Translated in the Hebrew word for fat reads chi-l-b, and the word for milk also ch-l-b, that in the vowels. This means that in every one of the 136 places of the Old Testament where chi-l-b is used, it could either mean fat or milk. So the translators got the context and it was pretty easy to see what it was referring to. It was clear that the intended meaning is either fat or milk. Thus translators of KJV chose to read those words 92 times, chi-lab, and to read chi-lab 44 times. It's only seldom ambiguous as equal. The point, what's the point? Good fats, bad fats. While milk fat and milk fat is actually consumption, hard fat grease is something God instructs us to avoid. So looking at the unpointed Hebrew text, on one hand God instructs us not to eat, the fat around the meat. They would discard and burn it on the altar. They were not to eat that fat. Then there's invisible fat. And there's fat and cream. So God instructs us not to eat one, but the other is at least permissible. Milk is high in fat. God promised to give his milk a land flowing with milk and honey. And it should be clear that God intended Israel to drink those things. So I think butter, the Bible actually talks about butter, which is interesting. I have a feeling it was referring to curds or maybe some kind of yogurt, or I really don't know. But it does talk about butter. And actually it's a prophecy about butter, and butter is specially mentioned as something Abraham offered to Jesus and Christ. He were two angels came to Abraham and he offered them butter, which is interesting. Implied that Abraham's household butter was readily available. So in the Bible permits the use of consumption of butter. Which form, it's up to the interpreter, I'm not sure, which happens to be a feeding high cholesterol. Dismantling myth, medical researchers are rethinking, if you don't know about this is coming out more and more, and people are up to speed with this, that cholesterol, rethinking of cholesterol theory. It seems cholesterol in itself is not the problem, not dietary cholesterol, but rather oxidized cholesterol, caused by, I guess, like good old milk and sugar combinations that Ellen White said avoid. She didn't say don't have milk, she said just avoid those combinations. And that's one of the biggest problems. So, Bible. Butter and honey shall everyone eat. When he shall know to refuse evil, to choose the good. Butter and honey shall he eat. Who's the he? Just read Isaiah 7 and make your own mind up. And it says in Isaiah 7:22, and it shall come to pass for the abundance of milk they shall give, and he shall eat butter, for butter and honey shall everyone eat that. An interesting verse in Proverbs 27, verse 27. One of the things that helped me in my recovery was drinking raw goat's milk. And I used to guzzle a lot of the stuff. And it helped me quite a bit. And one of the verses that was particularly interesting to me was, you shall have goat's milk for your food and for the food of your household and the meats of your meats. So, my suggestion, if you choose to have some milk in your diet, ensure it's from healthy, well-cared for grass-fed animals free of antibiotics and hormones. That follows the counsel of Ellen White, and I think common sense will tell you that. So, the Australian standards are pretty good. So, major energy source. So, that can be a major energy source. Now, if you're a vegan and you don't like milk, fat, cream, that's fine. You can eat avocado, olives, or cook with good old what? Extra virgin olive oil. So now I want to shift to olive oil. In the Bible, olive trees and olive oil are described as, does anybody know? Anybody looked at that? A source of light and energy. Isn't that interesting? Fats, energy, fats equal energy. Not just carbohydrate. A symbol of health, fatness and beauty, blessing and fruitfulness. So there's the Bible verses. Olive oil better than butter. When properly prepared, olives, like nuts, supply a place of butter and fleshiness. The oil eaten in the olive is preferable to animal oil or fat. Ounces and diets includes 359. Quote, the olive, or the oil as eaten in the olive, is healing to any inflamed, irritated stomach.
But does that mean
Yeah, I don't think it matters at all. Yeah, I mean, Pete, and I'm going to show you a study in Europe, about a 5-year study on Europeans. They surveyed 7,500 people. So it wasn't just a little study, it was a mammoth study. And they looked at their heart health and other health. And it said it didn't matter whether they were cooking, these are Europeans, you know, they were pouring olive oil in their cooking. They were fine. But it's interesting, it talks about the polyphenols or the particular antioxidants in the olive oil. That was important, but it did differentiate between cheap olive oil and extra virgin olive oil. So it had to be the extra virgin, the real thing.
And also that you don't allow it to get to a level of heat.
Yeah, you don't want to smoke. Coconut oil has more more heat resistance, so you can cook that up higher. But yeah, sort of moderate heat, I think. Olive oil. Yeah, I'll go into that. Yeah, I'll move into
Sorry,
that.
just that process. It's olive oil is eaten in the olive, so she's saying
Yeah.
an olive.
Well, when I was at the extreme mountains years ago, I thought oil has to be in the olive, you know, and all I was doing was eating a few olives here and there. I use a lot of olive oil now. It's done me no harm. So far. Well, you know, the Spaniards and the Europeans are 20 years on top of me, so I think they're still doing pretty good. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a traditional, this is nourishing traditions, nourishing diets that people have all around the world. And again, remember the big picture. Everybody's blaming fat, and yet the sugar's snuck in and it's created all these metabolic problems. So I'm trying to be fair here. I thought, in one way, I didn't want to present this. This is going to be touching on toes. I don't care. I'm given an opportunity. I'm just sharing, I was blessing. I'm blessed by hearing other people's stories, their journeys, and there's some really good doctors out there they're courageous because they're going across against traditional mainstream paradigms and they're blowing the whistle and they're saying we got it wrong. I mean, I thank God for these people that unearthed these documents with the Harvard medical scientists and this review paper that was POS 5. They gave them $50,000 to write a bias to lie to people. So let's move on. The advantages sought by the use of butter may be obtained in eating properly prepared olives. So here we go. I'm saying milk, cream, that might work. Olives, fair enough. Vegan. If vegan doesn't work, there's another. Vegan didn't work in my case. I'm not a vegan. If you want to be a vegan, fine, do it. Just experiment and find out what works for you. And I think this is going back to Bible, science, life experience, not just one thing, not one size fits all. The taste of manna. Now this is interesting. God multiplied oil for bread for a widow and her son and her guest. He multiplied the oil on another occasion, undoubtedly for food as well as other purposes. He gave Israel oil out of a rock. God gave manna that tasted like cakes baked with oil. And notice this, the taste of it was the taste of fresh oil. How about that? Yeah. I don't know what God made that stuff out of, but I'm sure it's pretty yummy. And butter and oil and flavour. Because we have a sweet tooth and we have a desire. God has designed us with these things. So the Bible commands us to use the use of oil to be mixed in flour batters and spread on. Fake butter, what's that? Also, now these trans fats, hydrogenated fats, look, not only to me do they taste disgusting, I've never liked margarine, even when I was eating junk food as a kid. I just didn't like the stuff, I prefer butter. And it's just, anyway, you can make up your mind like that. These are man-manipulated foods. We shouldn't be having them. That's my opinion. And actually someone said you can see how they make them, how they've got a colour and you never eat it again in life. So save money on supplementary oxidants. Why? Because when you're no longer need them, milk, cream and olive oil on the other hand, or coconut oil contain stable, non-reactive fatty acids that resist or less resistant to oxidation. Therefore, consuming these oils may conserve the body's antioxidants and in turn promote health and reduce inflammation. Don't overthink the following picture or take it too literally.
What's wrong with that?
Can you see that? Yeah.
Well, it's not you, Jeff. Like, if that was you, we would have known you.
Drink a glass of olive oil every day, the Mediterranean way to a long life. Science science, and that's an exaggeration. Science and life experience. Scientific perspective, as I said, examining 7,500 people, men and women over 5 years. You can just read through that. You know, these cultures, like in Europe, they drink about 12 times as much olive oil, or sorry, not drink it, they eat it, add it. They're cooking 12 times more than the average American or maybe Australian. So they have about 12 litres a year per person. That's a lot, isn't it? A litre a month? Yeah. So you can get your ready land or your Cobram estate olive oil. Nice water olive oil. Put that in cooking. So anyway, this was that study. Who was it asked me? Anyway, about... but health surveys of European populations kept finding that Southern Europeans lived longer and had less heart disease despite higher fat intakes. In turn, it turns out olive oil was the likely reason. A Mediterranean diet versus low fat. 10 years ago, an ambitious and unique research trial started in Spain with 7,500 people, overweight men and women in their 60s, at risk of heart disease and diabetes. They were randomly allocated to two diets for 5 years. One, a low-fat diet recommended by the doctors in most Western countries, and the other, a high-fat Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil or nuts. Isn't that interesting? Or nuts. Both superior to low-fat diets. The pre-meds, I don't know how you pronounce that, Predimed study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2013 conclusively showed that the Mediterranean diet group had a third less heart disease, diabetes and stroke than the low-fat group. They also lost a little weight and had less memory loss. The most recent results showed that it reduced chances of breast cancer, albeit in a small number of women. Picking through the data, the researchers found that the extra virgin olive oil group did slightly better than the extra nut group, but both were clearly superior to low-fat diets. Reason why? I'm a curious person. I like to know why. What's the science behind this? Or maybe because of 30 polyphenols in extra virgin oil. So the cheaper forms of oil, as I said before, those labelled regular or virgin, did not show any benefit. It had to be extra virgin. The difference between the two grades of oil lies not just in lower acidity, freshness and richer taste, but in the number of chemicals released called polyphenols. High-grade extra virgin oil, especially if cold extracted, has around 30 polyphenols that act as antioxidants, which reduce inflammation and also help reduce the effects of aging, particularly of the heart and brain. And again, the anti-inflammatory polyphenols. Until recently, it was thought these antioxidant polyphenols acted directly on the genes and blood vessels, but it turns out they also work via the gut microbes, and that make up our microbiome, that microbiological world in the gut. This is a community of trillions of diverse bacteria that live in our large intestine. They feed off different polyphenols and produce other small chemicals, short-chain fatty acids, that dampen down inflammation and help our immune system. So, critics of olive oil usually promote untested alternatives, suggest its lower burning temperature make it more likely to produce potential carcinogens in cooking, but Spanish participants in a trial regularly cooked with the oil, reassuring with no obvious health consequences.
So just back to the other olive oil, how they extract it. Once they finish the cold press, they then salt it.
Do they?
So they extract the remaining, and that's what they want.
Yeah, right. Well, who wants solvents in their body to clean their pipes? That's right. And so olive oil, according to Wolfgang Lutz, that I'll be talking about in talk 2, is one one of the best vegetable oils. It contains 70% oleic acid. Anyway, that's just the technical stuff if you're interested. But he's saying, this doctor, olive oil should not be the only fat consumed. Butter or cream, unbeaten cream, or coconut oil are also important because they contain more short-chain fatty acids, which have many health benefits such as faster energy utilization, antimicrobial properties, and anti-cancer properties. Also, too much olive oil, so don't overdo it like that picture I showed you before. Too much olive oil may generate imbalance of essential fatty acids. So try and get a balance. Alright, are you ready for Ellen White's take on fat solids? You guys ready for that? Firstly, she says you must not deprive yourself of that class of food which makes blood. So the point is to avoid what? Avoid extremes. Now some people, they find they need milk, eggs, cream or eggs in their diet. Eggs, another high-fat, cholesterol food, God designed with unique health benefits. And actually, I was talking to Liz about this too. We were saying that eggs contain two chemicals, plant chemical substances. It's actually like an amino acid that actually detoxify fatty liver. Isn't that interesting? Choline and methionine. So, in fact, did you know, I think an angel came to communicate to Mrs. Ellen White and told her to instruct a physician, a doctor, to physician heal thyself, case of physician heal thyself, instruct him to actually include eggs in his diet in a way of a very weird drink. Do you know what that was? An eggnog. That makes some people just want to gag and throw up on the very thought of this. But for people that have deficiency problems, they'll welcome this drink. It's actually a remedial elixir trick. People do great and extra. She actually says, and she said it not just, Ellen White said not just to one person. It's at least two. It might be even 3 different people. And she said do the same thing. Get eggs from healthy fowls, healthy chickens, and get the best unfermented wine you can find. In other words, grape juice. Just get good old decent, good quality grape juice. Get a fork and just blend it in, blend eggs in. She said don't do this just once a week. She said 1, 2, 3 times, 2 or 3 times a day. And I think it's a physician, someone in his name, but he did it till the day he died. Now I think it might have been anemia, pernicious anemia. It's speculation of what his health condition was. Pernicious anemia, yeah. So you know, So people, if you need to build the blood, that's the way of doing it. So she says that eggs contain properties which are remedial agencies in counteracting poisons. Now, who's read that quotation? Find that interesting. Revival life forces. And here's the story of that doctor. So, Dr. Lay. L-A-Y. Last night I dreamed a dream my sick child was sick. I asked the school physician, who's that? Jesus, the divine physician, who has never lost a case, what I should do. The answer came, break an egg in a glass of unfermented wine and such a drink 2 or 3 times a day until exhaustion is gone and there's a revival of the life forces. Get the energy back in the body. No extremes. If something's not working, change. Make a radical change. Yeah.
Would you be able, before moving on from eggs, to address this that I heard the other day? People are saying that eggs carry the cancer virus. Can you explain what you know about that?
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I was reading in a book at home recently, and he said that if you get cancer cells and you put them into the yolk of an egg, they'll die in a short time. Why? Well, one reason, possibly, is because cancer grows fermentation of sugar. So the egg yolk doesn't contain that. Contains these things that counteract poisons. So, look, I'm not as scientific as you, Liz. She's the one to talk to. Honestly.
No,
Yeah.
I haven't seen that research about putting the cancer cells into
Yeah.
the eggs. That's really definitive for this theory
Yeah.
that eggs are carriers of cancer. Hear that.
I'm not opposed to eggs in any way. You
Mhm.
just eat moderate. We don't eat much of that. Because you've got the issue of the salmonella.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, somebody said that by putting in the grape juice, it counteracts all the salmonella. I heard that sometime. Linda or something like that. You've heard of that? There you go. So,
that combination.
yeah.
But we're not talking about
She's
taking,
having-
we're not talking about taking the egg out.
Oh. Excellent. Listen up, everybody. We're not talking about battery caged junky eggs that the chickens get no sunlight and there's no sun. No. It's talking about getting good eggs from chickens that are well cared for, that are in their natural habitat, that are healthy and happy. Okay, so that's what's going on. That's getting the area of the gut and digestion. It's probably another topic for another day. I think, yeah.
Liz just clarified, and you said about the cancer cells in the egg. It doesn't contain cancer, or it does?
They don't grow if you get cancer cells and put them into an egg.
Right.
Egg yolk, a raw egg yolk, they will die. So the cancer cells don't thrive in egg yolk. Not good, sure. Alright, so Ellen White said this: our vegetables are generally cooked with high cholesterol foods, milk and cream, and made very palatable. We think a moderate amount of milk from healthy cows not objectionable. Ellen White had a Holstein and a Jersey cow, so she got cream. Maybe that's why she didn't have butter. She just got cream and couldn't be bothered beating it. I don't know what. She said, I've settled the butter question. I've settled the butter question and love to pick her brain what was in her thinking. Because there's one study, a Sweden study, that actually tested butter and cream, which I thought was interesting. So they're looking at, they fed some people butter, added butter to their daily diet, and others cream, and there was a difference in their blood cholesterol. So, but then people are saying blood cholesterol doesn't matter, triglycerides.
Maybe
What?
the difference is one is pure cream
Uh-huh.
and the other is processed.
Yeah, and it's different. Like, if I ask you a question, well, honestly, be honest, who likes raspberries, strawberries, and cream? Or who did? If you're a vegan. Everyone, right? Just next to everyone. Would you rather have strawberries and butter or strawberries and cream? So there's a difference in flavour, isn't there? I don't know.
So just to clarify,
Yes.
the cream group, that had a positive influence on their cholesterol.
Yeah, they had less LDL cholesterol. Yeah, I'll show you a graph. I have a graph. I was going to put all that in here, but I thought, is it really important? So I just shoved it in the appendix. I probably won't get to it. So. But again, I've got these on. This is a lot of information, and that's why I did copies on USB. So if you want to, those who are interested in this big picture or details, you can have a look at the video research. So, although Ellen White recommended people who are physically weak should eat high-fat foods, she also indicated in general we should aim towards a vegetarian or mostly vegetarian diet according to God's original design. Back to him. This is especially as wickedness in disease increases. Okay, so I'm trying to be fair. Yes, there are the quotes where she says as disease increases, we'll have less of those foods and whatever, all that, you know about that. Ellen White recommended specific foods and oils high in cholesterol, saturated fat, milk, cream, eggs. And Ellen White also recommends specific foods and oils high in monounsaturated fat, olives, nuts, seeds. So vegetarian or the other. So I lactose and I like to have milk. It was helping me in my recovery. And one of the little tricks I did, because I was lactose intolerant, was just to add some lactase enzyme, which is in a healthy person with diverse enzymes and gut bacteria. They'll have lactase in there to deal with the milk sugar, and they can have it and not have a problem. So that's what worked for me. It does like 50 litres. You just add. First I was adding 12 drops and I went down about 3 drops, and it converts all the lactose to galactose and make it sweeter. So it's having some. I know this is controversial, and I said I'm in unconventional. I was having raw milk and it helped me a lot. So raw cuts. I actually went 3 months, more than 3 months, and
he improved significantly.
It was one of the stepping stones. It wasn't the answer, and I'll be bringing out why in part 2, because I was doing about whole long seeds about 5 litres a day. But that's to help me get ahead. I did some radical changes. And the first week it was like, wow, positive things happening in my body. But so I've done a lot of, and I'll share this in part 2, a lot of self-experiments, because I was very, very ill, and so over the years I've done multiple self-experiments to find out things that would work for me. And what I'm sharing here are some of the fundamental things. There's myths out there, the whole fat, sugar, carbohydrates, all over the shop, there's misinformation. So, anyways. Now, summary. Although I recommended fruit more than refined sugar, we need to factor in the following. Once the body's energy systems are damaged and compromised, and the insulin hormone is not working effectively, then even certain natural foods, especially complex carbohydrates, can pose a problem. And context, this is about people that have damage in their body, not do healthy ones, okay? For a person whose pancreas has been damaged, although better than refined foods, even whole like fructose foods like sweet fruits, grains can spike and crash the insulin and trigger disease cycle. Now, clarification, yes, complex carbohydrates or your whole food sugar sources like fruits and grains are certainly better than your white refined table sugars, but for certain people, they might have to reduce or eliminate those foods to rebalance the gut for the energy system. Fortunately, God has designed us in a way that carbohydrate is not the only source of energy. Fats are a great source of energy, and that's what I hope this talk makes clear, or introduces this concept. For a person who's, okay, the point, had not the individual developed eating habits that damage his pancreas, these unrefined complex carbs would be healthy. It all begins with intemperate period in life where excessive amounts of sugar and refined carbohydrates were consumed, and sets up problems. Fortunately, there's a solution. There's ways of manipulating this. And that's what I'm going to bring out in part 2. So, part 2, I'm going to be sharing stories of people and go into some of the look at the clinical data and the findings of a German physician that was trialling people for over 40 years and looking at the observations and how their blood was changing and how their whole health was changing. So I've taken those principles of Dr. Wolfgang Lutz and tried to say where do they fit into the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. So that's going to be in part 2. Thanks for your input and your interaction and attention. Good sharing with you all. Is there maybe is there any questions that we could have a little anything that's unclear or don't,
That's what
I'm not really sure. Yeah. For me, I don't like a lot of grape juice because I'm trying to reduce the carbs for me. Yeah.
Are you talking about
Just probably best just in a glass bottle maybe, or not your reconstituted stuff. Try and get some nice stuff. Or press it. Who has a juicer? Just press your own. It's even better. And in the next talk, I'm going to be talking about people that did juicing and they had turnarounds in their health. These were vegans that secured excellent health by doing juice detoxification. So are you interested in that? Part 2, that's pretty phenomenal. People like George Malcolmus, John Rose, others. Yeah, it's quite remarkable stories. And then I'm going to show people that did the opposite to get well.
Essential fatty acids as brain food?
Look, I'm not going to, for the sake of how much I can pack in, I'm not really going to keep on that. No. I think I did last year talk a little bit about that flax oil, this fish oil. Just flax. Anyway, let's have a prayer, shall we? Yeah. I just thank you for freedom to be able to share and the beautiful spirit that's been here and the openness and to share a bit of things along the way on the journey. And thank you for the Bible, thank you for the spirit of prophecy, and thank you for good, honest researchers and men and women out there that are courageously dismantling myths and alerting people to the truth and other people to shut the truth down. So, Father, I pray that we can exercise our reason and reflect on some of these things and maybe research some more if need be. And just pray for your blessing and that we can be in health.